Thank you, Kiko.
This is what you pay me for, Brian.
I don't.
You have an ad with my face saying you'd pay every woman to come on here for money, so I don't have to be quiet about that.
Hey, welcome back. This is Shah. Today we're going to talk about the Whatever podcast. There was some recent news that came out, and it was basically a back and forth on his show where Kiko, who's kind of a return guest, sort of committed a faux pas, I guess you can say, as far as the show's concerned, and mentioned the payments or that she gets paid from Brian to appear on the show. And, is it the biggest news? I guess it's not the biggest news. I mean, we've seen kind of hints of this in the past, but what really made it significant was Brian's reaction, because he clearly didn't want that discussed so overtly on the show. And we're just going to talk about that. We're going to view the clip and maybe just see how that maybe impacts the show. The one thing I can't help but compare it to is like pro wrestling. I don't know if you guys remember back in the day when they had WWF. And, it was kind of some people didn't really know, I mean, especially if you were younger, but it was like an open secret that it was staged and it wasn't real. But, it was entertaining. And then eventually WWF renamed to WWE, World Wrestling, I believe, Entertainment, from Federation. So I sometimes get similar thoughts about this. And the reason it's significant to me is because, it's part of the manosphere, and it supposedly, we're supposed to have advocates for men and trying to make things better for men. And seeing things like this, it's like, well, maybe it's more entertainment than it is advocating for anything. So let's go ahead and watch the clip and then just go on from there. So this is the tweet. This is from someone named Tree of Logic, who's another content creator. And she wrote, Beta Brian from the Whatever podcast gets exposed by Kiko for paying women $300 to come on his show. Brian is furious at Kiko for spilling his secret, calling her a word he explicitly told the women not to use. The irony is that some of the women didn't receive their $300 payment and confronted Brian about it after the show. So let's go and take a look at the clip.
Kiko, you could you could just not jump in every time somebody else is talking. That'd be really great. Thank you, Kiko.
This is what you pay me for, Brian.
I don't.
You have an ad with my face saying you'd pay every woman to come on here for money, so I don't have to be quiet about that. I get asked about 7 times a day. So
You get what?
you have an ad that pops up on everyone's social media that lives here that says $300 to be on the Whatever podcast, and it's my fucking face first. So I get asked about it every day.
You're a
So
fucking
am I
idiot
leaving
for
here
bringing that up, you
$300
fucking
richer? Because
retard.
You fucking post it.
You're
that
a
would help
fucking
pay for the
retard,
hotel
Kiko.
that I got.
You literally have it as an posted ad. It's nothing
That was a
private.
very strong word, Brian.
It's a literally posted word. It's a
What
post
the fuck does that have to do with the conversation at hand?
because you told me whatever.
Fucking retard.
Oh,
Brian,
I thought we weren't supposed to use that
Brian,
word. Yeah,
let's
that's on the instructions.
don't you please.
It is.
Please, we can do our back and forth, but don't fucking say that to me because that's very disrespectful, and I don't do that to you.
You're the one being disrespectful, bro.
Cool. Thank you for that. Sorry.
Thanks for the pizza.
So that's the clip. Brian has these days sometimes where you can just see him just being very frustrated. This looks like it might have been one of those days. And there's just a few moments in there where, he becomes visibly frustrated as soon as Kiko mentions that, And then he goes on to say that you're such a effing, R word for bringing that up.
You're a
So
fucking
am I
idiot
leaving
for
here
bringing that up, you
$300
fucking
richer? Because
retard.
You fucking post it.
For a moment, he kind of said, I don't, he was going to deny it.
This is what you pay me for, Brian.
I don't.
Brian.
I don't.
And it seemed like he pulled out his cell phone.
Asked about 7 times a day. So
You get what?
you have an ad that pops up on everyone's social media that lives here that says $300 to be on the Whatever podcast, and it's my fucking face first. So I get asked about it every day.
I don't know why. It could be for anything. Maybe he's just looking at the chat. Could also be maybe to text her so then she can see it on her thing. Don't bring that up. You know what I mean? So it definitely broke immersion. And then there was another part in there where one of the girls, they were just talking about the use of certain language. And she's like, that was in the instructions. And I was like, instructions? What instructions?
Brian?
I thought we weren't supposed to use that
Brian?
word. Yeah.
That's
on the instructions.
Don't you please.
It is.
Now, okay, Brian's paying the women to come on. It's not something that, it's almost like an open secret. There were a few glitches in the Matrix, so to speak, in which this kind of was discussed before, it kind of came out before. So we'll look at some of those. So here's a clip. It was posted on Reddit, and it's kind of them out there, I guess, looking for chicks to come on the show, and there's discussion of payment.
We also do a podcast in studio here in Atlanta. Do you guys have Instagrams? Maddie can take it down and we can invite you. It's paid.
Yeah, it's paid.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, you can. Yep.
Okay.
Grab their IGs and we can.
Yeah.
I'll chat forever if it's paid.
Okay, wait. Just type in your Instagram.
That's another instance, and it could be paid as in like, we'll pay for dinner or a hotel or something like that, or it's we're going to pay you X amount of money. I think it's probably closer to you get paid for coming on the show aside from the other stuff, only because in the first clip Kika was like, that's why you pay me to come on here. And to me that almost kind of sounds like they're being paid to be sort of extra bombastic, to be sort of extra stereotypical, to maybe play into certain things. And obviously that gets views and people are entertained by it. The other side of that, it's kind of like with WWF, and when you find out, when you're a little kid, you're like, it's the greatest thing ever. You remember all your favorite characters, Yokozuna, Big Show, Jake the Snake. I can't think of any other ones. Oh God, I think Bret Hart was another guy from back then, and then when you find out, like, oh man, everybody remembers The Rock too, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Then when you find out that it's staged and it's not exactly real, it kind of loses a little bit of its shine. It loses a little bit of its luster. It's like finding out, I don't know, Santa Claus isn't real or something like that, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, I mean, it's still kind of entertaining, but it just doesn't have that same level of authenticity to it. And then when you kind of maybe bring that out a bit and you think, well, what does that mean for the space? It is entertaining, but then like it's specifically geared to be rage content, to appeal to the sort of red pill rage aspect, to kind of all the worst aspects of this. And then you got to ask yourself, is this really helping men or men's issues, or is it more so just about profiting off of the whole situation and maybe even just making it worse and maybe even making men look worse if it's, shows that's constantly dunking on the women or berating them, or it just kind of appeals to that rage factor, which people could then later on maybe point to and say, this is just what it is. It's just about being angry. It's not about any legitimate issues or any legitimate social issues, especially for men. And from a sum total, I don't know if it's good for the space altogether. I guess the other moment that I think of when I kind of realized it, not so much the women being paid, but it's just kind of for entertainment, it's just for show, was fall of 2023. And that's when a lot of the red pillars and the traditional conservatives were kind of having it out, especially on Twitter. And there was a lot of back and forth. And Myron, from Fresh and Fit, he had wanted to get a big debate going on between some of the big TradCon guys who were sort of in this and the big red pillar guys, and they'd have a discussion about it. And I just remember Brian posting a tweet back then, which essentially, it just seemed like a money grab. You know what I mean? He was like, well, how about we do it on my show instead? And here's how we're going to split the money. And it was just like this open public tweet to Myron, maybe because they don't really talk privately. And it just seemed like a very overt money grab. I don't know if Brian hides the fact that he's in it for money. Fine, okay, there's an opportunity to make money. He's making some money. But it just it just seemed pretty overt to me, and it left me a bit like, yeah, I'd say disappointed. This is a comment from Reddit that had that other clip of them offering to pay the girls to come on, and I think this kind of explains things clear enough. But it says, y'all hate Brian so much for no reason, and it's hilarious. Quote unquote exposing stuff. He has literally been admitting for months. He said he was only doing the podcast for money. And again, I don't know if that exists. Maybe he did say that, in which case, all right, hey, thanks for being honest. Number 2, he has said that he will sometimes pay girls to come on the show, especially if they have huge followings. Otherwise, what would a girl who has 100K followers on Instagram and TikTok get out of coming on the podcast? And he offers different amounts. Like, I remember seeing a chick say she was only given like $10 LMFAO, but others will obviously get 100 plus, depending on how much clout they have. I think he's been outright about just being in this to make some money. I don't really know what Brian advocates for. I haven't really seen him on like other manosphere podcasts or shows, or being, maybe he has. I haven't seen him like so much interviewed by other folks. I watch in the space and things like that. It's generally just him kind of being a boxing promoter, which is just like, let me just find who's popular on the internet and, bring him on and make some money off of this. But I don't exactly know what he's advocating for other than, rage bait content. And also, I do remember there was another recent thing where, he basically openly admitted he pays the girls. There was someone who was on the show, and she put up a tweet that had a screenshot of their DMs kind of exposing him, because I guess he was supposed to pay her, but he didn't pay her because she left early, or she just wasn't sober on the show. But Brian himself did come out and, elaborate on this. And, he pretty much admitted it. So this is Destiny Torado, and she was on the show and kind of got into it with Brian, but she was angry she didn't get paid. So she posted this on Twitter. And it says, expose at whatever for not paying me. So she's trying to expose Brian. And you can see this is their Instagram, I think. And it says, you left early and showed up baked out of your mind, leading to your failure to participate properly. So she must have been like, why didn't I get paid? And then she says, I was never informed that I had to be sober. We were given champagne to drink, and you used me in the thumbnail, made thousands of dollars off of me, but can't keep your end of the agreement and complete payment. Sad to see this is how you run your business. So, okay. So she was supposed to get paid, and, he didn't pay her. And it was made clear by the fact that he responded to this. So let's see what he said. So here's Brian responding to that. He quote tweets her and says, here are the facts. She is a liar. She was paid, but only partially because of her partial participation. She left hours early while her 2 friends stayed, who were fully paid as promised. End of discussion. This degenerate pothead, Karen, and pathological liar came baked out of her mind. Could barely follow the conversation, was staring off into space half the show, and appeared to be dozing off at points. All other participants were paid in full. Had she stayed the entire duration, she would have also been fully compensated, even despite her egregious conduct. She claims she makes 7 figures a year, but is trying to shake me down over $100 by sending her followers to harass me and send deletion threats. Zero accountability, lies, slander. Imagine going to a job and leaving midway through and still expecting to be paid the full amount. And then you send your followers to harass them because you didn't hold up your own end of the deal. Another entitled strumpet. So, that's basically him admitting to paying the ladies to come on. And it's not just like, oh, here's your dinner and hotel. He calls it a job. Like, hey, you're paid to show up to a job, and, you do have to work or whatever. So, that's kind of what's going on in the background. There's payment, and, I get it. There's guests that come on multiple times, right? And, they go there, they get berated, a lot of times they're younger and they're debating, people like Andrew Wilson, who are like master debaters, LOL. And so, they get made to look stupid. It makes good content. It's a business, maybe you can say it's a grift. And Brian is not, I guess, denying the fact So yeah, payments happening. I don't know, what does it change? Again, for me, it's kind of like when you realize WWF is staged, a bit. I'm sure some of it's genuine at times, but then at the same time, there's probably rules, there's agreement, there's like, hey, just be like this, be super confrontational. And obviously, I don't know, but it does kind of make me think that it's almost like a sort of Jerry Springer-esque kind of deal. You know what I mean? Where the participants are encouraged to kind of be at their extremes and do things that are going to get clicks and get views. And, after a while, that sort of rage bait content gets tiresome. And when you think about it, then I think about the space and the manosphere and what it used to be and kind of what it became. Some people call it the mano swamp now. There was kind of an implosion there. And, I'll talk about how it was sort of taken over by sort of alpha male, hypermasculine gurus instead of folks who were kind of more concerned with men's rights and helping out men's issues like, custody issues, child support, and divorce laws, and even inequities and maybe dating and certain things like that, and different expectations and, gynocentrism and all these different things that I remember being talked about more widely. Instead, it kind of became this bread and circus theater, which frankly is what this podcast kind of does, and a lot of the other panel shows, where it just kind of feeds in on the rage aspect and takes advantage of that. I think people have kind of seen through that veil at this point, and it's kind of becoming a little stale. It's just kind of the same thing over and over again. I'd say the most kind of damning thing here about that clip, especially with Kiko, is that Brian gets really mad at her bringing it up during the show. And you can kind of brush this off and say, well, yeah, we talked about paying girls before, people knew about it. But just seeing how angry Brian got and how mad that she kind of specifically brought that up just kind of shows that it breaks immersion, and he doesn't want the audience at large to know that. So, it just kind of makes me see it in a different way. And it kind of leads us to like other questions, like who are real men's advocates, and what does this mean for the space? And, is entertainment part of helping men? Do we need entertainment, or is it more so like opportunists coming in to grift? Was feminism about entertainment to get what it needed? Why does the men's rights movement need entertainment or have to be entertainment to keep it moving? I think a greater question to ask is, who are real men's rights advocates and that are actually trying to see things get better for men? Like folks like Paul Elam or Peter Wright. He has gynocentrism.com and he wrote a lot of books, co-authored with Paul Elam on this stuff. Those are like your classic men's rights activists that aren't really all about this sort of hyper masculinity, self-improve, high value man, get a Bugatti kind of thing here. Or let's all go back to the way it used to be traditionally, and let's shame everybody for not being traditional, and let's get the biblical patriarchy going. Which, both of those just seem like kind of copes to a bad situation or kind of pipe dreams. Self-improvement is self-improvement is always good. But the reason I call it a cope is because I think they kind of use self-improvement as this kind of fix-all for everything. And there's just too many examples of guys that are quote-unquote high-value men that get screwed over in divorce, that get left, that get the bad end of the deal. And, no matter how much you can deadlift or squat or bench press and however fast you can run a mile and how nice your car is, it's not going to save you from certain things, no matter who you are. That's how you got, guys who are even high value leaving the country, going to other places. There's a reason Andrew Tate's not in the UK or the US and he went elsewhere. I mean, that's a pretty self-improved guy right there. I guess you can call him a self-improvement maximalist. So, working at child support, I just knew that the whole self-improvement thing it's just not a big enough solution to help with this. And I look towards guys that are more men's rights oriented and more realistic about that kind of stuff. I also like other content creators in the space, you know, not even just folks from back then, but there's other folks like Men Need to Be Heard. He's got a great channel. He talks about a lot of stuff with the family law and some of the injustices there. Father X is another great channel that talks about, you know, specifics in court. And I know court's not everything. There's other guys I really like. It's Complicated channel. He has great questions that challenge the culture. And, you know, I never felt like he was trying to sell me a course or an academy or something like that. And, you know, I also like Coach Greg Adams. He's a bit of a he's an improvement guy a little bit, but he's more free agent lifestyle, and he just has a different take on things. And he kind of calls a lot of these guys out. I'd say folks like that are actually folks advocating, you know, for men and trying to improve things for men instead of just trying to make a buck. So anyways, yeah, that's about it. If you made it this far, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Be interested to hear what you think. Yeah, you know, it's basically the WWF. Is it entertaining sometimes? It is entertaining sometimes. You know, once you kind of grow up a little bit and you realize it's staged, it loses a little bit of its luster. I mean, you know, we had some good times. We still remember some of our favorite characters and some of the good times we shared with them. You know, we had The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Yokozuna, Jake the Snake. There were all these fun times, but you know, then you realize, yeah, it was staged, and you kind of look back at it a little differently. And I think that's kind of how I choose to view podcasts like this that sort of pay people to come on and I guess sort of cater to the worst, most toxic aspects of all of this. I can say it served a purpose for a bit, but it just kind of becomes the same thing over and over again. And I don't really think it helps to kind of improve much. As far as that stuff goes, I don't really see many new things coming out of it, but that's just my opinion on it. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you on the next one.